really creative.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Anita Lettink, who's darling. It doesn't actually seem that far away that you're in the Netherlands, but I guess it is a couple of 100 miles away. We're going to talk about the future of jobs in 2030. I'm really excited to talk about this. It's the future of work, and that is just changing so much right now. Before we get into that, Anita, tell people where they can get hold of you.
So people can find me online. I run a website called anitalettink.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, where it's let_Anita.
Okay, and Lettink is Lettink.
Exactly.
Right. Good. So you've got a really massive background in human resources and that, haven't you? So give us a little a brief overview of your journey so far.
Yeah, sure. So I joined NGA 20 years ago, and I had a background in IT. And this was a company that specialized in automating HR and payroll. So that was a really good combination. Over the years, I've been in the fortunate circumstances that I had a really nice career with the company. My first couple of years, I mostly spent in the Netherlands. Then I went to Northern Europe. I managed a couple of countries. And then at the end, I was on the global executive team responsible for strategy, alliances, and communications.
Sorry about that. I had an incoming call. I've switched it off.
Good.
So you were involved in structuring alliances?
I was involved in, and so really what I did was I was talking to our customers, talking to the companies that we worked with to understand where they were headed. But I also talked to, for instance, economists and other people, people from financial institutions, to get a view of where the world was headed, so that I understood what that meant for companies and their workforce. And we could translate that to new services, new products that we needed to develop to make sure that we were relevant for our clients in, let's say, 2 or 3 to 5 years.
So that meant you talked to a lot of chief human resources officers, CHROs.
I did. Yes. And from a lot of different backgrounds, because the companies that we sold our services to were always, for the most part, international companies, but from a variety of industries. So financial institutions, but also manufacturing, transportation, retail and leisure. So that gave me the great opportunity to combine all these different viewpoints and then think about where work could be headed or will be headed. And then, of course, the pandemic came and turned all of it upside down. Yes.
So I remember interviewing someone who was saying that they were talking about the future of work for 10 years, and then all of a sudden we'd fast forward to the future of work.
Yeah, and what I always remind people of is, don't be mistaken about digitization and technology, because what we did last year, work from home or work remotely, was only possible because we knew how to do it. We had the technology. We just didn't use it the way it was intended to be used. I mean, Zoom was not invented last year. Neither was Teams or Slack. And like I told you before we started, I was a road warrior, had been one for the past 20 years or so. My laptop was my office, and I was used to work from anywhere. Especially the last years, I didn't have an office. I was a home-based worker. And then I traveled to our partners, to our clients, to conferences, and took my laptop with me. And as long as I had my laptop, I was able to work.
Yeah. And so what have you, because I think that work has changed even in the last 12, 18 months.
Yes.
Because I think that people's expectation has changed. When I remember lots of discussion about human resources and leadership when we first went into lockdown was actually, how do we replicate what we did before, but on an online mode. Now
Yes.
we seem to have that seems to have matured over the last 12 months. What are you seeing?
I think what you saw was two different ways of remote working. First of all, there were companies that already practice this a little bit, allowed people to work from home maybe one day or a week or so. And so they had policies and procedures and approaches in place, but they also knew how to manage those remote teams. And then there were the companies that were used to have everyone in the office. And then suddenly they had to pack up their gear and go home and have a desk somewhere in the house and work from there. And especially those companies had a difficult time, because if you are used to manage your people and you see them in the office every day, and now you have to make a deliberate attempt to contact them and to have a conversation and to talk about outcomes instead of, I can see you work every single day. I think those companies had it a little bit harder, or maybe much harder, because they were unprepared.
Yeah, I always do this thing where I go, where's Steve gone? Has he had 2 hours? Has he really had 2 hours for lunch? It's like, because that's how people were managed.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned, I was a remote worker, and I'm based in the Netherlands, but I had no one in my team that was based in the Netherlands. I had people in Manila, Kuala Lumpur, in Spain, in the UK, in California. So you lead differently if everyone is remote.
Yes.
Some things need to be a little bit more deliberate, because you don't have these run-ins at the coffee machine. You don't see someone sit at their desk all day and think about, or you don't get a sense of, maybe that person isn't doing so well because they're not as chatty today as they were yesterday, right? Or as they are normally. So you have to also be able to approach tough topics. And it's just a little bit harder when you need to do that online, but it can be done. It's not, once you get the hang of it and gain more experience, then it's definitely something that works.
Right. Yes, I think that I've worked for tech. I've always worked for tech companies, and they've always used tech to run the business. So it kind of wasn't such a surprise to me. But I know there was people that came to me that said, I can't manage my team unless I can see them in the office.
Yes.
And that was difficult.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the fact that the work needs to be organized differently. And you talked there about that work and location were actually now two separate things, whereas work and location used to be the same thing.
Yeah, and I think what you see going forward, and this is also something that I talk about very often, is we've now learned that work and location are two separate things. And what we did in the past was, well, we had only one location, right? It was the office. That is where you went to. But going forward, people have now learned that work isn't equal to that one location, and it can be done somewhere else. And maybe parts of it are better done outside of the office than inside the office. And so what I always say is you really have to break work down into activities. And then per activity, you determine where that takes place. Of course, the office still plays a part in that, right? That is where you go to meet people, to have meetings if you want to do that, to have brainstorm sessions. And then if you're smart, arrange for a lunch afterwards so that you can also do some socializing. But why would you then afterwards keep people in the office until 5 o'clock with everyone sitting in traffic and having a long commute? If you're done with the activities that everyone needs to do together and your lunch ends at, let's say, at 1 or 1:30, then by all means send everyone home to, their email, to read through reports, to write research papers, or to work on something where they need some peace and quiet. And if they have a one-on-one, maybe you have a co-working location that is really close by, or you meet at a coffee place. And so you'll be saving people a lot of time. And frankly, Tim, people expect you to work with them now a little bit, because I think that what they're of the opinion that, look, we showed you that we can do this. We showed you that we can be productive in the home, outside of the office. You gave us a lot of trust. We didn't abuse it. So now let's not go back to the situation that we were in before, where we have to be constantly watched in order for you to determine that we are productive. But that brings, a whole different issue for leaders. Also, they have to start thinking in outcomes, not in presence, but in outcomes. And productivity is then based on the outcomes that workers achieve, where you can still set some boundaries. Maybe you want everyone in the office on Tuesday or on Thursday from 10 to 2, that's fine. But really be creative with the space and also how you organize the work.
Do you think that we know people differently because of the fact that we've sat on Zoom calls and we can see into people's houses, and and cats arrive and dogs bark and parcels arrive, and we used to have this persona of our work persona and our home persona, and now the two things have actually merged. Is that something that you've seen as well?
Yes, I think we have, through the pandemic, it has become a lot more accepted to talk about your personal circumstances. We've met spouses, and we've met children, and like you say, pets. And so we have gained some insight into the personal surroundings and circumstances of people. And I think that has also brought by a little bit more understanding of that people actually cannot leave their personal circumstances behind as soon as they enter an office, right? Work and offices are intertwined, and especially the focus on mental health.
Yes.
Has, I think, made a lot of companies realize that there is more than work, and that they also have to make an effort to understand what's going on in the personal lives of employees or workers, and help them if that is possible. And hence the introduction of all kinds of mental health apps and services. And I think we'll only see more of that.
So if we're decoupling work from location, what does that mean from a contractual basis?
I think it opens up a world of opportunities for workers, but also for companies, because if work is not tied to a location anymore, for workers, that means especially white collar workers.
Yeah.
That means, or knowledge workers, that means that they can find a job anywhere in the world. And
yes,
for companies, it's the same thing, right? If they define the work in packages, they can allow people all around the world to bid for these work packages, as if it were, or they can contract people all over the world. And I think that might be a scary concept, but I think it's the only way that companies will be able to fulfill their strategies in future. If they don't think about, look, this is my talent, and these are my workers, and they're all in my contract, and they're all in my building, that doesn't work anymore, because the best talents, so the best workers, have now discovered that they could be worth a lot more if they work, on Monday I work for this company, on Tuesday I work for that company, and then maybe I only need to work 3 or 4 days a week.
Yes.
Because, and I don't know if this will be sustained, but at the moment, people are placing quality of life above earning more money, right? I think the pandemic there has given a lot of us, and especially people who earn more than they spend or have enough money to fund a really good lifestyle are making other choices. And I that one, I'm not sure if that will be permanent, but I think a lot more people have learned that maybe downsizing a little bit isn't that bad, because the quality of life increases a lot more than they thought.
Yeah, everybody here in the UK seems to have gone out and got a dog. The only people
That's the same here.
are
Yes.
pets. And these dog puppies are going for thousands of pounds. But the fact of the matter is that they're able to walk them now, but if they go back to the office, they're not going to be able to walk the dog. So they've already made a decision.
Yeah.
That they're not, the lifestyle of being able to get up in the morning, take the dog for a walk, and then actually do some work.
Yeah.
And contribute is a decision that they've made, and they won't do that by getting on the train and commuting for 2 hours into London and 2 hours back again.
Yeah, exactly. And here you see it also in the housing situation, because people have moved out into the country, bought homes that they normally wouldn't buy, because that means like a 2-hour commute, but they're already thinking, if I only go to the office 2 days a week, that 2-hour commute is fine. But now I have a home, a house with a yard, and I have an extra room so that I have a home. I can create my home office where I won't be disturbed. So that is something that we see here, as well as the pets. Yes.
So one of the things about if telling the story of with decoupling work from location, that means that people then can decide when they're going to work or who they're going to work for.
Exactly.
Does that mean that therefore there's going to be some level of platform required for doing that? So we've already had for years, we've had things like Fiverr, where you can get a logo design for, in effect, it's supposed to be $5, but it's usually about $30. Yeah. But we also have Delivero here, and every country now has. You don't need to go out to get food; you can get it delivered to you.
Yeah.
And I think what we've seen here in the UK is that there is an expectation that because Delivero drivers have taken it to court and now Delivero have announced that they can be unionized, that this is the end of the worker in that way. But in fact, you're saying that's actually accelerating, because white collar people are going to do that.
Yes, I think so. So what you'll see is that this will move to higher paid positions. As an example, there are now sites where you can, as an executive, you can offer your services. You're then called a fractional executive. So as a CEO or as an
fractional, is that a bit like what in the past was interim or something like that? Or when you say it's fractional, I guess with interim it was 3 months. With fractional, you may do just a small piece of work.
So now fractional is more like you are the CEO, but you're not a full-timer.
Right.
So you'll be the CEO of this company, and it can be a longer period of time typically, because you're on the executive team. You really want to be invested in that company. You're not an interim. You're officially the CEO of that company.
Right.
But because it's a small company and because you have a lot of experience being the CEO, you can probably do this in 2 days a week, instead of running this company with thousands of workers that you did in the past. If you ask me, I think that especially with those types of fractional jobs, you will probably invest more time in it than you originally think, because things always go that way. So, but what you will see is people combining different things throughout the week. So you might be that fractional executive for 2 days. You want maybe go to school for 1 or 2, do some volunteering, and maybe even do some mentoring and coaching. So we'll see more people combining different things simply because they can. They don't want to spend 5 days, 40 hours in the same role. They are going to do the things that help them move forward, that are exciting to them. And they will try to trim as much of the administrative, operational stuff out of these roles so they can really focus on the knowledge and expertise part. Yeah.
So it's about doing what you want to do in the way that you want to do it.
Yeah.
And if that means, I think for me, the thing that's going to die is the commute.
Yes.
I just don't think that we all want to get onto a train full of germs and spend 4 hours a day in it.
I'm not sure about that one. I think right now we don't want to get on a train because we don't want to be, so we're so used to social distancing that we think it's scary to get close to people even though we're vaccinated. I think we need to have that conversation in 1 or 2 years when this whole thing is hopefully behind us a little bit, and we'll see if people get back to what they were used to, because there's also, I don't know how it is where you are, but here there's this big relief that we're starting to get ahead of the pandemic, and people are going back to having parties and going to festivals just because they are so happy and they're celebrating the fact that this hopefully is behind us, although we don't know yet what it will look like in the autumn and in the winter, of course. But and we're also, we're halfway through vaccination, so it's a wait and see. But I could see that some of the commute is coming back. Maybe not all of it, maybe not like it was before, but I think that there will be commutes. So people, and in fact, people have bought more cars, right? Because they don't want to take public.
Because they don't want to take the train, yes.
Yes. So.
Which in the Netherlands is a pity, because the public transport in the Netherlands is great or cheap.
Yeah, if you live close to a station, it works.
Yeah, I've gone from Schiphol to Utrecht, and it's like €9. It'd be like it's 30-40 pounds in the UK. So
yes, I know it's the Heathrow Express is a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a 120. It used to be €120 taxi ride, or €9 on the train. It was and you have the double decker trains as well, which is always fun.
Yeah, but let's see how that will work out. I'm very curious to observe those types of trends going forward and see what that means for.
Well, maybe we'll talk in a year's time and see how things have gone.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Anita, it's been fantastic. Thank you for talking to us. As I say, I find this area fascinating because it's changing in front of our very eyes.
It is.
And there's no way that we probably ever would have predicted this would have happened. I think we were headed in the right direction, but as you mentioned, so last year just accelerated everything, and now that we have learned what is possible, we don't want to go back. Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
So Anita, remind people where they can get hold of you.
So you can go to my website, anitalettink.com. I'm on LinkedIn, search for my name.
Yes.
And I'm on Twitter, where my handle is _Anita.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today, Anita. It's been
really
me. Interesting. And I hope people found it interesting out there on the internet as well.
Good. Yes. I'd be happy to answer all their questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are very social. I contacted you over LinkedIn and you responded within minutes. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Thanks so much for today.
Bye.
Bye.